All right, hello there, no treblers, fellow no treblers, no treble ears. In continuation of my little exercise series, back up so you can see all of me, I am going to give you guys talk about modes just a little bit. Not going to obsess about the modes, but I'm going to give you some, I call them modal patterns. They're really just scalar patterns that you move up and down the fretboard in whatever key you choose to be in. These will be taken out of Improviser's Path for those of you who would like to read along. First, I'll briefly explain modes for anybody who's not entirely sure what those are. It's one of those things that can wind up sounding more confusing than it is depending on how well it's explained. So let's see how I do. If we're in the key of C major, we have the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I start with everything in C because there's no accidentals. Makes it easier for me to know if I'm doing it right. Once I have it in C, then I move it around and play it in different keys, or maybe through the cycle of fourths, every key. For now, C major. So if I play all of those notes starting from anywhere in the scale, say I started that on D, played the same notes, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, I actually get a different scale. It's all the notes of C major, but it's a different scale because that third note winds up being a minor third, and it has a flat seventh. So it's not the major scale anymore, it's a mode of that scale. We've just taken the same notes and started in a different place and then played for an octave. So 7 notes in the scale, 7 modes for the major scale. Same thing for melodic minor, 7 modes closely related to but not exactly like the major scale modes, often just off by 1 note. Harmonic minor, any exotic scale you can think of, however many notes that scale has, that's how many modes there are for that scale. So we are going to be operating in C major. First, just to make sure I don't jump ahead of anybody, I'm going to play all of the modes of C major. C major, Ionian. Most everybody knows that. Starting on D, we get D Dorian. It's only D Dorian because we're in C major. If we were in the key of A major, you'd have B Dorian. So I get asked that a lot. Dorian is just major scale starting on the 2nd degree, no matter what key you're in. Third, Phrygian. Fourth is Lydian, much like a major scale but with a sharp 4. G, Mixolydian. Major scale with a flat 7. A, Aeolian, which is actually the natural minor scale. If you've ever heard anybody reference the natural minor or the natural major, that's actually what they're talking about. In C major, if we start C major from the 6th scale degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, A, and play the same notes of C major from A, we get A minor. So A is the relative minor of C major. C major is the relative major of A minor. So A minor, 7th mode is Locrian. Major scale starting from the 7th degree. So now we have that. Let's talk about some modal arpeggiatic patterns. And briefly, a lot of people obsess or rebel against scales and modes. And there's been a lot of conversations I've come across online about, are they worth learning? Do I have to learn them? And in truth, no, you don't have to learn anything in particular. You can become a good bassist not knowing what you're doing at all from a technical or analytical standpoint and simply playing by ear if you develop your ear to that point. There's been a lot of great ear players throughout the years. But learning scales and modes and playing all these different patterns, they help to open the fretboard up in your mind. They help you to learn the connections and the intervals and the relationships between notes on your fretboard. And you're really just mapping out the fretboard. It's not that when I'm going to play, I'm going to be thinking, C major for these 8 bars, and then F Lydian for these 4 bars, and then A flat Dorian for these 4 bars. I'm not thinking like that, and I don't think many people do. But because I've learned all my scales and all my modes, and I've practiced moving them around in different patterns. I'll show you this one in a second. The reason I can kind of noodle around and just play all kinds of wonky stuff in C major is because I've mapped it out and played the C major scale in 1,000 different ways. And not just played it and figured it out once and then forgotten it, but built it into my muscle memory. I spent a lot of time getting that down. I was forced to spend a lot of time when I was a kid getting that stuff down, and it paid off. So there's my little blurb on that. They are uber helpful for mapping out your fretboard, learning how within any given key you can kind of move around the fretboard, and you learn about arpeggios and inversions, and then you start to get a sense of how you can play around with chord tones and substitutions, and it just it kind of helps unravel the mystery, helps you to understand things from a technical standpoint as well as an oral standpoint, AUR, oral, because you will also develop you get a sense of how those things sound. So, all right, enough of that. So now we've worked on all of our modes of the C major scale. Now I'm going to say let's arpeggiate every chord inherent diatonic to the C major scale. Sounds complicated, but all we're really going to do is play about half of the notes we just played doing the same thing. I'm going to play the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th of each of those scales. So essentially I'm arpeggiating 4-note arpeggios, 1, 3, 5, 7, all the primary chord tones for each diatonic chord which is derived from each mode of the major scale. So C major 7, D Dorian, get a minor arpeggio, E Phrygian, essentially just a minor arpeggio because we're not playing the other notes, F Lydian, major 7 arpeggio, G Mixolydian, major with a flat 7, we get a dominant arpeggio, A minor, and B Locrian, minor 7 flat 5, root, B, minor 3rd, D, flat 5, F natural, A, flat 7. So, next step, I would say play major 7 arpeggios through all of the modes. You can play them up and down, you can play them just up. Let's say I'm going to play them all up and then all down. Oh, I screwed up trying to talk and play at the same time. Now when you're starting down, you might find it a little tricky because you're not going to be starting on the root. If we're playing 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7 backwards, we're going to be playing 7, 5, 3, 1. Let me turn that screen on, I lost my there. So that means on a B minor 7 flat 5, I'm going to start on A, the flat 7. 7, 7, major 7. So there's diatonic arpeggios, C major 7, all of the modes, up the neck. Again, I'll go up on the way up, down on the way down. There's a number of ways you can finger these as well. It's best to figure them all out. All right. Now, let's do a little alternating. Let's go up 1, down 2, up 1, down 2. So up C major 7, down D minor 7, so I'm going to be starting on a C because that's the flat 7 of D minor 7, up E minor, down F major, up G mixolydian, dominant, down A minor, up B Locrian, down C major, up B Locrian. So one more time, 3 and 4 and then you can invert it, start going down. Finish it. Get creative with it. Come up with your own patterns, even. So I'm going to show you guys one more. I've heard this referred to as the spider exercise. In my mind, I thought the spider exercise was something different that John Patitucci had done, but I never actually saw that video, so I don't know if I'm mixing up my spider exercises, but I've heard this referred to as the spider exercise. So again, all the same, we'll call it spider diatonic spider exercise. And I apologize, my head's kind of cut off. I wanted to make sure you can see the bass. I figured you were more concerned with the fretboard and my plucking hand than you were my fantastic haircut. So spider exercise, instead of playing arpeggios, we're going to play a specific pattern. This pattern is essentially 2 notes up and 2 notes down. I'm going to play 1, 5, 9, which is the second an octave up. 7 notes of the scale, 9 minus 7 equals 2, so it's a second scale degree. Really just stacking fifths there. 5th to 5, 5th to 9. Now, you're going to go to the 7th of the scale, which is conveniently located, if I'm playing that 9 with my pinky, 1 finger per fret, conveniently located under my index finger, and then play down in thirds. So we're kind of making a big X, going doon, 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 but like keeping it diatonic. You could do the same thing non-diatonically and just, which is a nice stretchy thing to do. But let's keep it diatonic now because our goals here are modal in nature. 1, 5, 9, 7, 5, 3. Now we're going to start on D and do the same thing, keeping diatonic to C. So D, A, E, C, A, F natural. So our pattern changes a little bit. We need to change our pattern to make sure that we keep to the key of C major. Now starting on E. Again, now we're stacking 5th, flat 5, tritone. Sorry. So that was the whole thing from the bottom, and I think we should go back down. But let me do that one more time and see if I can not talk and play it properly. I suppose we could, let's see. This is one way to do it. I can't talk and do it at the same time. pattern. I suppose once we get to the I've never done it like this, but that's a good way to do it. So what I did there, then I believe I started on the third, and then 3, 5, 7, 9, 5, 1. Did I do that right? And then down to the next note of scale. Sorry, I can't talk and do this at the same time. I think I might have messed something up there. I've never done it that way before. I just made that up. I just thought there's got to be a variation that we can throw in here, and there it was. Can't do it perfectly. I'll work on that myself. So, to recap, make sure that you have the ability to play your modes in any key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up and down. Make sure you have them mapped out. Then make sure you can arpeggiate each mode, being aware of what chord symbol you might be playing over, ideally. But if nothing else, just think in thirds and arpeggiate in that key, however you want to think about it. You can just think the key you're in and the notes available to you and play in thirds to hit those arpeggios. Or I prefer to think of the chords relating C major, D minor. We're not going to worry about the upper structure stuff. Some of these will have flat nines and stuff like that. But C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G dominant, A minor, B half diminished would be the chords, the primary chord types, barring various extensions and alterations we would make to represent the full chord scale. Don't mean to throw a lot of gibberish at you. So modes up and down, arpeggios in a variety of patterns, all up, all down, alternating up and down, and then the spider pattern, making the big X across the fretboard, moving up the fretboard and down diatonically. And as per usual, don't try not to practice these faster than you can play them well. Make sure it's always good to be operating on that. You want to find that happy place where you're challenging yourself, but you're not in the weeds. You understand what you're doing, but you have to think a little bit about it. Much like me working out that backwards spider pattern I just came up with. I could kind of do it, but I'm biffing things here and there. It's not muscle memory, but I understand conceptually what's going on, and I'm working through it. That's I found that to be the sweet spot. You want to be challenging yourself, but not so lost that you're just confusing yourself and actually doing damage, or practicing improper technique, practicing sloppy notes. You don't want to internalize bad muscle memory either, or bad tone. Everything you play, whether it's the most mind-numbing exercise on the planet, you should try and do it musically. I find myself using vibrato and slurs and articulations even when I'm doing some of the dopiest scalar patterns. But it's good to get yourself in that mindset of always playing musically no matter what you're doing. So I hope that helps some of you. I hope maybe I even answered a few questions for some of you. If you have any questions, as usual, get the conversation going in the comments. feel free to email me directly, askdamian@notreble.com. I think we'll put a link to the books down below. No pressure. But if you're curious, they exist on Amazon and elsewhere. Not trying to hard sell anybody on those, though. I just, I want to make sure you guys understand this stuff, and sometimes it helps to have a book, sometimes it doesn't. Some people don't do well with books. They need to figure it out on their own. I was one of those people. So, there's my little blurb on modes. I hope that helps. Take care. See you guys soon.